Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cynthia Linox Show. I am your host, Cynthia Linox. I want to encourage you today to stay focused, and be mindful in everything, mindful, intentional in everything that you do. Keep in mind that you are the one that's at stake. It is you, it is your journey, and we are continuing to navigate through this journey of self discovery. One of the things to keep in mind is when you set out to navigate, set out to discover who you are so that you can step into your true, authentic self. The important thing to understand is that you're going to be breaking with tradition. You're going to be breaking conventional norms. You're going to challenge the status quo, religious deconstruction. All of these things are going to come into play. That will be, for some of you, a challenge because the place of tradition that becomes, for some of us, or for some people, of course, I've, broken loose, quite some time ago. But for some people, it's the norm. It's a place of comfort. It's a familiar spot. It's what you know. It's a safety place to be. And when you take a step to break out of the norm, to break out of the place of comfort, it can be uncomfortable because there are a lot of changes that comes with it. But the only way you will come into that place of your true authentic self, knowing really who you are and loving yourself and really living in that place of freedom and joy and peace and contentment and a place of pleasure. The only way you will know that is when you break away from the old and embrace the new. And I'm sharing with you today, just like I have done myself. You can create your own. It's like myself. You create the life you want. You create the life you want. You don't have to settle for for what society has constructed along the years. You don't have to settle for that. I always say, your freedom stops when you infringe on the freedom of another. But as long as you go through life enjoying yourself and having a good time, taking responsibility for yourself, and whether you do or not, again, it's on you. But for the sake of this uh, conversation, or for the sake of what I'm sharing, you take responsibility for yourself, and whatever comes from that, that's what you have to figure out or deal with. But the main thing to understand is that you're going to be breaking away from the traditional mindset. And whatever it is in your life, we go through life just, let's say, I was talking to someone yesterday, and I went to this workshop, a workshop for business women, entrepreneurs, and so forth. And there was this, I had shared that because somebody asked me about my show, and I said I talk a lot about breaking from tradition and religious deconstruction. And one of the girls shared this. Oh wow, that's good. And she said she's going through this certification to get a uh, this course to get a certification. She's an interior design, high caliber, very creative, and so forth. And she came into a place where she thinks that she have discovered her niche, the things that she really wants to do. And she shared it with the instructor, and the instructor was very discouraging. He said, like, why would you want to do that? There's no money in that. But what this person realized, that is her passion. That which she discovered is her passion. Now, the facilitator of the workshop that we were both in said, if it's something that has come to your mind, it is because there's a need for it. Remember, the theme of the workshop is overcoming limiting beliefs. So this woman said that her instructor discouraged her from honing in on that particular area in the design field because in his mind there's no money in that. And he also shared with her some business models, and and everything has to do with old business models, old business modality, old business ideas, and so forth. So the point is, and then she made reference to, see, it's the traditional way of doing business. And it was like an open discussion. I should retire. I said, look, if that's what, because when you are passionate about something, it's not work, and the money will come. When you are passionate about something and you step out and do it, the money comes. So if you're in something to do, if you're working just to make money, that's why people that are working just to make money, sometimes there's a lot of frustration, there's stress, and so forth, because it brings no joy, no pleasure. Remember, I share often in my shows that the purpose of life is pleasure. So anything that you do, anything that you're doing, should bring you pleasure. You should expect it to bring you pleasure. So when you think of breaking with tradition, there's so many things that we are that are so ingrained in us that we don't think of it as a traditional construct, a social construct, conventional norm. We don't think of it as that way. We just think of it as that's just the way it is. Take, for instance, and I was thinking about these things as, when I left, and I was thinking about, traditional things that we adhere to, that we follow, and so forth. And I was thinking of, let's say, relationships, marriage vows, and so forth. There's so much that goes along with that, from the time you meet someone to when you're dating to when it was so funny because now that I think of it, when I met my husband, we had already been dating. We were dating for, we are here in the US. My husband is there. I mean, my dad was in Panama. And when for some reason, I don't even know why, I wouldn't do it today, but my husband called my dad and asked him for my hand or something to that effect. Not in a formal way, but something to that effect. Now, what is my dad going to say? And I hadn't seen my dad in a long time because, I'm over here, he's over there, we correspond, but not, we hadn't seen each other. What if my dad had said no? I would have married my husband anyway. That was just a conventional norm. That was just tradition. That was just tradition. Giving my dad, I guess, the courtesy or whatever. But I was already an adult. I had already been married once before. So this was like my second marriage for me, not for my husband. He'd never been married. But so, but he called my dad and he asked. So tradition. So, and when we got married, I knew that I wanted to take away those conventional vows, traditional vows, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health. Now, let me tell you, every relationship, marriage, is transactional. Whether you whether you want to accept it or not, it's transactional. And when sometimes you go into a marriage, it doesn't turn out well. And for me, my mindset, my peace of mind comes first before anything or anyone. Because if I am not at peace with myself, it's kind of hard to be at peace with someone else. So when you say for better, for worse, just say, for instance, you get into a marriage and, after a year or two or whatever, somebody gets distracted outside of the marriage and they cheat. They cheat. They cheat. Cheat meaning they have an extramarital affair. They have an affair. What does that mean to you? Would you stay? Would you stay in the marriage? You know, they talk about therapy and counseling and so forth. And, you know, everyone is wired differently. But I personally, I don't believe one needs to work to save a marriage. Are you saving a marriage, or are you, you know, in it to have equal exchange? I love you, you love me, I like you, you like me. It's transactional. Because if one of the parties decides at one point that they no longer desire to be with you, or they no longer really enjoy your company, I wouldn't see any reasons to be in the marriage. You don't save a marriage, you enjoy a marriage. But we are taught, you know, it's tradition. You know, you go to marriage counseling, you go to church, to the pastor, you try, and it becomes so fake. Just imagine that. It becomes so, you know, so much effort to make the marriage work. Why? Why would we do that? You know, because of the way I think that life, the purpose of life is pleasure. And because I think that way, I seek to gain pleasure out of everything that I do. As a matter of fact, yesterday when I went to that workshop, I got up, I just wanted to chill. I just wanted to chill. But I knew, because of what they were going to share, overcoming limiting beliefs, that's something that, you know, I wanted to hear somebody else's viewpoint, somebody else's take on that subject. So I made myself go because I knew that I would get pleasure out of that. And I did. More pleasure than just, you know, staying home and, you know, I would have read, because I have this book that I need to, you know, I want to finish reading. I'm enjoying the book, but that would have given me more pleasure. And I did that. But just imagine working to save your marriage. And then you do all these things. You have these date nights, and you have these this, and you go away on a trip, and all of this, and you know, in the meantime, the person that's distracted is thinking about someone else, and you know, they're really not with you 100%, and you cannot be your true authentic self in the marriage. You cannot be your true authentic self because you're trying to save the marriage. Just think of that. I know it's a little radical way of thinking, but think of it. And I guess we can think, you know, of course, and this is not painting that whole uh, experience with a broad brush. No, because I know when there are children that are involved, it's a whole different dynamics. As a matter of fact, my life, my experience growing up, you know, my dad, I talk a lot about my dad because my dad was a great provider. He was a good provider. He wanted to give us the best of everything, and he worked for it. He had a business, and then he also worked outside of that. My mom managed the business, uh, and she did very well. Now, my mom is a woman of substance. She's smart, and she manages money well. She knows how to save a dollar or to make a dollar multiply. My dad was a great provider, but he wasn't a good husband. He wasn't the ideal husband, in my view, because it was abuse, you know, mental, emotional, whatever. And, you know, I saw that, and you know, what it did to me was to set up a standard for myself when I made my choice. My mom had three girls, and she wanted to make sure that we benefited from the great things, the good things in life. She wanted to make sure that, we were, uh, went to the best schools and had the best of everything based on their ability to give us that. In Panama is classism. So, and we were able to make life easy. They were able to make life easy for us. But my mom went through a marriage that was not ideal. And growing up, I just didn't, I could not process that for myself. So my sister came to the US and then I came. And then once my younger sister left the house, my mom, she is so brilliant. My mom, because my dad used to be absent, and my mom arranged to leave the country and she came to the US. Came to the US and got some sort of a certification for postnatal care, self-employed. And the from the moment she left Panama and came to the US, my mom lived those years of her life bountifully. She flourished because she worked, she became self-employed and she traveled, she went on cruises, she belonged to these organizations, went to a lot of functions, fashion show and this and that. As a matter of fact, she would say, there's a big fashion show and a big event happening for Mother's Day, and she would uh, buy a ticket for me to travel to New York to be with her and so forth. And then she sent for her sister. She was doing so well. She was able to send for her sister, and they came, and my mom lived a great life once she left that relationship. And I admired her for that. My dad, after she had left, he was, wanted her to come back and, cried and whatever. And that was it. Her motivation was she wanted to make sure that her kids were gone from the house, adults growing up and so forth. So she endured that uh, less than ideal marriage for many years. I don't know that I would have done that, but she did it. My point is, when we talk about a marriage, for better, for worse, do we really mean that? Do you really mean for better, for worse? I couldn't say that in my marriage because, if there was a situation of infidelity, then there is no for better, for worse. In my mind, that just doesn't, I'm not wired that way. There was a situation talking about for richer, for poor. There was a situation of these two professional couple, they're young couple. They, they got married. He has a great position, making good money and equally. So they got married and had a couple of kids. And after a while, the husband lost his job. He was like a six figure, lost his job. Fortunately, uh, the wife had a good job and was able to, well, working overtime. I think she was in the medical field or so, a nurse or something, and was able to work double and extra and so forth to carry them through while the husband looked for another job. Well, he's looking for another job, and after a while, he got sick of it. He got tired of looking for another job. So he would spend his time playing video games every day, video games, every day, video games. Every day, I mean, from morning till night, video games. And these video games, you can connect with people from all over the world. So there are different time zones. So he was on the video, on the, playing video games almost 24/7 and would not look for a job. Obviously, that affected the relationship. It affected their intimate lives. It affected because The wife had to take on extra work in the medical field. She had to take on extra work, come home, cook, take care of the kids, help them with the homework, wash. She carried on the function that she had been doing all along. And he's home playing video games. And the money is not as, they couldn't take vacations because, he had a great job, and the money was cut in half. And what she made, she had to work extra in order to be able to cover all the expenses. They had nice cars, new cars. They had a mortgage, tuition. They had a big ticket. And she went through that for a few years until she said enough. What would you do when you say for richer, for poorer? How does that fit into your own mindset? How does that fit into your own personal tolerance? How does that fits in? If something was, let's say, for instance, he had a situation with depression, well, then you need to address that. You go to a mental professional and have that taken care of, mental situation, whether it's anxiety or panic attacks, depression, then you address that. Then you know that there's a medical condition and you address that as such. But to be caught up in video games 24/7 or, most of the day, for rich or for poor, that just, what would you do? Think about that. But tradition tells us to obey the marriage vows. And if you made those vows, then society expects you to honor those vows. In sickness and in health, you don't have to tell somebody that. When you have a good marriage and you have a situation, that comes with it. You don't even have to say that. I don't even like saying that, because that is something that you will do anyway, in my mind. But this about for richer, for poorer. So you get he loses his job, and instead of continuing to pound the pavement or to be creative, because today you know that you can create something. As a matter of fact, that's how what's happening today is that people are creating jobs out of a need. After 2020, the pandemic, things are totally different. People working from home, and you can do so many things to create wealth, to make money. And the wife, what should she do? What would you do? What would you do? Would you work to save the marriage? And I know, yes, you have a couple of kids and so forth, but we're wired different. Now, she may say she prefers to be, for the kids to have their dad and so forth. For my mom, it was, I want them to have a good life, and until they're on their own. This woman may think she wants them to have their dad. Was he a deadbeat dad, or was he involved in their lives? Was he the one that's taking them to games and to going to PTA meetings and taking them to the park, playing with them, entertaining them, helping with the homeworks? Was he that type of that? I don't know those details, but all of those things are things that we keep in mind, that are factored into our decision. It's transactional. And then when you go back to the other situation, for better, for worse, do you stay in a relationship that has extramarital affair? What if it's someone from work? These are real things, my friend. When you're talking about this journey of self discovery, some of you are going through this right now. You are a place that you have to make a decision. Do you work to save a marriage? You don't work to save a marriage, to save your marriage. You work to save yourself in your marriage so that you can give your best to your spouse. Now, if it's not reciprocated, you have a decision to make. You can either, if that works for you, some women just want to be, or man, just want to be married and have a spouse and just having the aesthetic, just having the picture perfect relationship. But when you're by yourself, are you able to laugh? Are you able to have fun? Are you able to travel together? Are you able to make decisions, big decisions for the house, for the home? Are you able to go out together and trust each other with with the public in a social setting where you're not looking at each other and being jealous? Or is that the type of relationship that you have? Because that really is the ideal relationship. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and we were I was sharing some situations with her, and this is a friend of mine that she's widowed. She just became widowed a couple of years ago. Good looking girl, woman, uh, independent, financially independent, and so forth. And she shared that we were talking about having respect for other women in whatever situation. And she said that she talked about having a neighbor. They're a couple and they're very, very friendly, very helpful, and so forth. Uh, but then the wife has changed for some reason, kind of changed. And anytime she needs something done, she would call the wife and ask the wife if if he can fix this for her or help her with this or whatever it is. She always calls the wife. And she says that now she has noticed that the husband has gotten a little bit too friendly and she doesn't like it. And I said, he knows you're single, you're a good looking woman, you're independent, and so forth. And so you need to pay attention to that. But she picked up on that. I said, because if he's getting too friendly, then that's, we're adults, amigos. I said, you may want to get a handyman to do whatever you need in your house and kind of back off from that relationship. Yes, you give the wife the respect, but if he is feeling a little loose, then you need to set boundaries. And those boundaries may be hi neighbor, morning, morning, and that's it. Because people can get distracted if they're not careful. So you go back to for better, for worse. And she doesn't want to be the villain. She doesn't want to be the person. She doesn't want to be responsible for any kind of situation in 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 someone else's marriage, because she said she noticed that her she noticed that the wife changed a little bit. And when she was away on vacation, and when she came back, the husband said, he was saying, "Hello, welcome back, so and so. I missed you." And she said, "It's probably because of the way he phrased it. What do you mean I missed you? Why would you miss me? I mean, if he said we missed you, or it's good to have you back or something like that, but he said I missed you," and the wife standing next to him heard that. So these are little things that come up. And we were talking about breaking from tradition. This marriage vows, for richer, for poor, for better, for worse. And you have to determine what works for you. You have to know how you are wired. And that is one of the reasons why, as you go back and discover, wait a minute, no, I won't tolerate that. I don't want that. That's not the kind of relationship that I want. Once you know you, and you establish in your mind who you are, what you like, what you desire, what you can tolerate, what you can offer, what you bring to the table, what's off the table, what's a red flag, what's a no go. Once you know all those things about yourself, then you can make better choices for yourself. Because remember, my friend, you are making decisions for yourself. To love yourself first. You've got to love yourself more than anything else. And if I say you even have to love yourself more than you love your children, I know most of you are going to say, no, 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 I don't love myself more. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't give your life for your kids, but in order to give them a good framework, a good frame of example, what to follow, they have to see you loving yourself, nurturing yourself, because that is what they will learn. When you take time and you say, no, 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 mommy is taking a bubble bath, you have a seat and go read a book or go do something else. And not that you jump the moment they say something or ask something, you jump up and you just go and you just jump. And one woman said to me, she said, my life is, and she's an adult, of course, she's the mother, but her kids are adults with kids. And she says, my life is for my children. And that's okay. That's the way she's wired. It's not a matter of good or bad, right or wrong, true or false. What works for you is what works for you. As long as you are honoring yourself, as long as you're honoring your own self, as long as you're honoring your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own feelings, knowing who you are, if that's what you want to do, then if it brings you pleasure, then my friend, go right ahead. That's what I like about this show. You're not told what to do, when to do, how to do. It's simply that you must do what works for you. And if it's, I don't want to listen to that, then if that works for you, then that works for you. It's what works for you. And the same way society created all these norms and traditional things and all of that, you can create, you can change things, modify, alter, dismiss, dismantle, get rid of. Growing up, we are taught to respect our elders. That is something that in just about every society, respect our elders. Does that apply today? Absolutely not. And you would say, oh, how could you say that? Does it apply today? Have you listened to some of these elders out here today? Now, if you go in a public transportation, a bus or train or something like that, and an elder person walks in, you want to, you sitting down, you give them the seat, things like that. But as far as, the way you communicate with the elder, have you heard some of these elders, their language? And again, it's not a matter of good or bad, right or wrong, but somebody that's going to speak to me in such a bodacious way, do they deserve the respect just because they are older? Or do you mirror? They respect you, you respect them. Do you match the dynamics? Do you match the behavior? So that doesn't hold anymore. That does not hold anymore. Respect your elders? No. I honor, you honor your elders. You honor, and of course, this is not, again, it's not a broad brush, but some elders do not deserve the respect. And you have to decide what works for you. You have to decide what works for you. You have to decide what kind of relationship you're going to have with a particular person. As a norm, you want to do that, obviously. You honor the elder and you give them, there was this question on social media about, there's the husband and he's in the car, and then the mother is with them, and the the wife is with them. And the question was, who gets to sit in front? Who gets to sit next to the driver? The mother of the son of the spouse, or the wife? That, to me, that's just a personal thing. That is I would not even vote on that. But think about that in your relationship, because every relationship is different. If your husband is the one that's driving, and there's a seat in the front, and then of course the back, where would you have his mother, if you're female, your mother-in-law, where would you have her sit? Do you have her sit in front? And barring any kind of uh medical condition, she can walk well, she can get in the car, she can sit and so forth, where would you have her sit? Would you have her sit in the back, or would you have her sit up front? That's an individual decision. That's a decision. But now, uh as long as it doesn't conflict with your husband's uh desires or opinion, because he may think that his mom should sit in the front, and you may say, no, wait a minute, no, I'm your wife, I should sit in the front. And then he would say, well, but that's my mom. And she would say, but I'm your wife. And then if the mom is a little, you know spicy or whatever, and then she just said, no, wait a minute, that is my son, and this is his car. Imagine that that drama. Imagine that drama. It can become a little dramatical situation. What does tradition says about that? I don't even think you need to chalk that off to tradition. You just need to be able to uh do whatever dynamics, whatever works in your relationship, with your husband. Is it something you discussed before, or does it happen, you go in front and the mom assumes that she's going to sit in the front, and then there's conflict? That's case by case. I never had that situation, so I don't know. I know one time we were taking a road trip to a couple hours out, and my mom was going with us, and I think I had her sit up front with my husband. My husband was driving, and I think I sat in the back, of course, but that was my mom. He didn't care either way. He was fine because he loved my mom, she loved him, and they get along great. There was no issue there. But not every relationship is like that. And if you go by tradition, what does tradition say about that? To me, that's a case by case situation. Case by case. Another thing with tradition, when you get married, what's this about the woman taking the husband's name? And that That tradition is here in the West, because in Latin America, that is not even an option. When you marry someone, everybody keeps their own name. The wife does not take on the name of the, I shouldn't say all of Latin America. In most Latin American countries, in Costa Rica, in Panama, no, you keep your own name. You keep your own family name. And that's just the way it is. And now here, things are changing a little bit, because I read the other day of a couple, they got married and he took on her name. That's different. I've never heard anything like that. But the husband took on the wife's name, last name. And they just a decision, they both agreed to it, and they were fine with that. I admire that. They stepped right out. They got rid of the box. They got rid of the box. They did not submit themselves to any kind of traditional norms. It's something that they wanted to do, something different, and they just did it. Of course, people were just aghast. The traditional elders around them. All those things. Christening your baby when you have a child. Tradition says, or sometimes it's superstition, that you've got to christen, baptize, or whatever the baby. Why is that? Why? What happens if you don't? What happens if you don't christen or baptize the baby? I'll tell you what happened. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. The baby grows, and whatever direction they're geared into, they either default to that, or they discover on their own path as they become young adults and adults and things of that nature. This is just so radical, and I love it because that's my mindset. And it really comes with that burning desire to know who you are, to know what you are made of, and then stepping out in a way where you're not afraid to be yourself, and not afraid of what people are going to think, what people are going to say, how they're going to view you. You're not afraid of any of that. You step out being your genuine, authentic self, loving who you are, taking care of yourself, and treating people, because I have seen with my own self, the more I learn about myself and love myself, I can look at people with no judgment and no criticism. And when I say that, you know exactly what I mean. But you look at people differently, because they've got something going on in their lives. People that lashes out. There was a something on the news earlier this week about a guy that I guess it was road rage, and he took out a gun and shot the person. He didn't kill the person, but the guy got 40 years in jail, behind bars. 40 years. Look at the guy, and he's probably in his late 40s. And I just felt so bad, because I'm like, gosh, we talked last week. Last week I talked about regulating your emotions. We talk about emotional intelligence. And here's a guy, just for one situation. Like, one of the things that I hate is for somebody to cut me off. I am the first one. If you put your blinkers on, I'm going to let you through. Even if you don't have your blinkers, if you're coming out from a small street and I'm here, I will stop for you to give you access, because, they need access, and somebody has to give it to them. I'd rather it be me, because when I need access, I've been very lucky. People let me through. So you give people access. But when you cut me off, that pisses me off. When you cut me off, I don't like that. But what am I going to do? I'm like, this guy's in a hurry, or, this person is in a hurry, or they don't know how to drive, or whatever. You just let it go. Why? Because if you take on that stress, if you take on that anger, it affects you, not him. And you're not going to get so angry because somebody cuts you off to take out a gun and shoot at them. That to me is crazy. When you think of, you know, critical reasoning, and that is what you get to know yourself, and you submit yourself to, critical thinking, logical reasoning, emotional intelligence, and all of these functions work for you. Why? Because you're getting to know who you are. Not only are you getting to know who you are, but you're liking yourself. You're discovering things about yourself. And that's why this week, I'm sure you probably all heard it. There was this thing on, in the political arena, one governor said something about the presidential candidate that, well, the governor says that she has kids and her kids keeps her humble. And the response from the presidential candidate was, what the governor doesn't understand is that um, there are a few women that do not aspire to be humble. That to me was a home run. That to me was a home run. I don't know if the governor thought, if you need your kids to keep you humble, then you're not humble. And who the hell cares about humility? What's this stuff about humility? You know why I am so against this whole mindset? Is because people confuse confidence or humility with, when you're confident and assertive, some people think you're not humble enough. And to me, that just goes out the window. I'd rather be confident in what I know and what I do, and I'd rather be assertive than to play small, because to me, humility is such a false thing. And you're seeing it all over. You see all these people that calls themselves religious and so forth, and how they act, how they behave. Nobody, this humility stuff is a farce. So I'd rather be confident. Now you can decide what works best for you. You want to play small to placate, to render some kind of, I mean, I don't know if you think that's something honorable to play small. So the governor needs to know that there are some of us women, because I put myself in that do not aspire to be humble. You could keep your humility, and if you need your kids to keep you humble, then you are not humble. You're hypocrite. And you decide what works for you. But this humility stuff, the way it's designed and the way it's defined, actually, and the way people, view humility, if you're quiet, if you're meek, if you're, no, 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 I'd rather be confident, especially when you have your truth, and when you know who you are, and to be assertive. You Yesterday at the workshop, I was able to encourage so many of the women there, and I loved it, because I saw in them things that they perhaps didn't see in themselves. And even the facilitator, the speaker, she did an excellent job. I made sure that I told her that. I wanted to make sure that she knew that's how I saw her. She was excellent. She was excellent. Dr. Beal, she was excellent. And I really gained from that whole workshop. And I told her that. Now, if I wasn't confident and assertive, it probably would not mean anything to me. But I made sure she knew that I I was there because I wanted to be there, and I enjoyed every minute of what she shared. And she was so flexible as well, because I think she had in mind to have some sort of a hands-on demonstration of something and whatever, and it wasn't flowing that way because we were all chiming in and sharing and so forth, and it was going so well, and she just went with the flow. And I applaud that because she wasn't structured like we have to do this and this was my agenda and this was my, no, she went with the flow, and we were all able to contribute and participate and give our take on certain things, and our encouragement to each other as they share their experiences and so forth. So you see, when you're confident, you can do that. Obviously, she was also confident in what she had to present and share, and she just knew that it would have been okay. It was okay that she did not stick with her agenda. This whole tradition thing, my friend, you comes a point where and it's been a while that we've been talking about a journey of self-discovery, and know that it never comes to an end because we are constantly evolving, we're constantly progressing, we're constantly learning and leveling up. And the way that happens is that when you learn something, when you discover something about yourself, it's important that you put some action to it, and put it out there, and until you feel empowered to share, or to make a decision to do this, to do that, and to make a decision to be yourself, to be your true authentic self, not being concerned with what will people say, what will people think. And as you continue to allow yourself to grow that way, you are making room for new things to emerge. But if you get stuck, like those of you that are stuck with the religious indoctrination, if you get stuck trying to reconcile and process and mesh those together, even though it may appear to be a difficult task, it simply requires a decision. And once you go back and check the sources of different things, is this true? Is this correct? Once you go back and check the source of all the information that you garnered through teaching and the doctrines, as you were growing up, you need to go back and check it and check it. I was talking to someone about, and they were, you know, thoughts and prayers for the people that there's an impending hurricane that's upon us, Hurricane Milton, and you know, people are thoughts and prayers that people don't lose their house, that there are no fatalities. There's just a lots of thoughts and prayers for that. And I said, if you are praying to the God of the Bible, and I say the God of the Bible because that's the God that is taught in our social structure. If you're praying to the God of the Bible to intervene, to circumvent anything, dry throat here, to intervene, to circumvent any kind of disaster, to the extent where there are fatalities, people losing their homes, losing everything, because that is so devastating. Now, think about it. Would it not be easier, or does it not make logical sense to pray that the strength of the hurricane is lessened, or that it stops, or that it just dissipates and vanish in the ocean? Wouldn't it makes better sense, logical sense, my friend, to pray for that to be to disappear, as opposed to, oh, if it comes upon us, that the damage are minimal? Because the same God that you are praying to circumvent the strength of Hurricane Milton is the same God. I imagine, I am not religious, so I don't, that's not my path. But it's the same God that you can pray to 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 get rid of Milton, so that it causes no damage. And sure, we know that's it's a natural phenomenon, and climate change and all that. But you serve, for those of you that are Christians, an all powerful God. Christians, or whatever religion that ascribe to a powerful divine being, that same God can mitigate this whole situation. And that's what I would say that one needs to pray for, not to minimize the damage, but to avert any kind of damage to the people in that region. We've got to change our thinking, get rid of the traditional mindset and limiting beliefs that we have. We can expand, you can go beyond, you can be curious as to see how would that work. And if you're gonna pray and intercede and fast and all of that, then pray for it to be dissipated in the ocean, to disappear, causing no harm, no power outage, no damage to people's house, and so forth. We are breaking with tradition, and it comes with this whole journey of self discovery. I don't want to say it gets tough, but it becomes challenging. And it all depends on the passion that you have for self, to grow and to become your true, authentic self. I'm going to leave you with that so that you can give it some thought and start looking in your own life to see what are the areas that I am so stuck in tradition, following conventional norms, which, in most cases, there are things that should not be normal. In the meantime, every Thursday, we have a date right here, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if you miss our date, then you can check 24/7 YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And you can pick up the feed on any one of those stream. And now, if you want to drop me a note, you can go to info@thecynthialinoxshow.com and drop me a note. We'll take it from there and chat. I'm also a life coach in case you need someone to walk alongside you during this journey. Uh, Drop me a note and we can have a 30-minute Zoom to see you know, if we're a good match, and based on what your needs are, because, they're life coach for different things. They're career life coaches. They are, just life coach for marriage, relationships, a whole bunch of different times. So anyway, and mine, of course, for me, it's discovering the true nature of who you are. So I'm going to leave you with that, my friend. Have a fantastic weekend, whatever you do. And I will see you next week, same time, same place. And we'll just continue to unpack some goodies with this going. Hasta luego, amigos. Chao, hasta la próxima semana. Au revoir, tata.